Hello, and welcome to the 21st episode of my Failed Franchises series and the third episode of my West Coast Mainline Operators mini-series. Today, we are looking at the West Midlands franchise, the franchise which covers commuter services from London Euston towards Northampton and Birmingham, as well as commuter and regional services in and around the West Midlands. We'll be looking at the first operator of this new franchise, London Midland, and whether their tenure as an operator should be deemed as a failure, whether this be their contract being stripped from them or their franchise simply being deemed poor by the public and industry. Do like, subscribe, and consider joining the channel for exclusive perks. Thank you. Now, let's look at how the new West Midlands franchise was formed. In the two previous West Coast Mainline episodes, we have looked at operators Central Trains and Silverlink, whose franchises were combined, edited and reformed to create the new West Midlands franchise in 2007. The new franchise would see Silverlink Metro services be handed over to Transport for London, while Central Trains' services would be split between the East Midlands and West Midlands franchise. The new West Midlands franchise was implemented to improve reliability, which had plummeted under Central Trains and Silverlink, with the new franchise beginning in November 2007. As for the map of this new franchise, it would cover commuter services out of London Euston towards Milton Keynes, Northampton, Crewe and Birmingham, as well as services to Bedford and St Albans Abbey. As well as this, the new franchise would cover commuter services on the Snow Hill lines to Birmingham Snow Hill, as well as the Cross City line and the Coventry to Wolverhampton line, and also regional services towards Worcester, Hereford, Shrewsbury and later Gloucester. Finally, the franchise would also cover regional services towards Stafford, Stoke, Crewe and Liverpool. Altogether, the new franchise would call at 178 stations, managing 146 of them, including Wilmcote, Coleshill Parkway and Water Orton, which would be served by cross-country only. As for rolling stock, the new franchise would inherit a number of diesel multiple units and electric multiple units, including Class 150s, Class 153s, Class 170s, Class 321s, Class 323s, and Class 350s from both Silverlink and Central. But who would be running this new franchise? Bids were put in place at the beginning of 2007. On the 22nd of June, the Department for Transport confirmed that Govia had won the franchise, beginning operations on the 11th of November 2007 on an 8-year contract until September 2015. With the awarding of the contract, Govia promised its new operator, named London Midland, would provide numerous upgrades to the network. These would include new semi-fast services from London Euston to Crewe, a new fleet of at least 37 electric multiple units by July 2009, and an investment of at least £11.5 million into its stations. If Govia didn't meet these targets and its performance targets, the Department for Transport could end the franchise early and implemented a clause to end the franchise after 6 years if necessary. Once London Midland began operations, they got to work immediately on upgrades to the network. London Midland confirmed it would be ordering 37 new Class 350s from Siemens to supplement the 30 Class 350s already in its fleet. These would operate most services along the West Coast Mainline, including the new services to Crewe. As well as this, London Midland ordered 15 three-car Class 172 Turbostars from Bombardier to replace the ageing Class 150s on Snow Hill line operations. Finally, they would order 2 Class 139 Parry People Movers to run on the Stourbridge Shuttle and free up Class 153s for other operations. The Class 321s and 150s would thus be withdrawn, with the remaining fleet of Class 153s, 170s and 323s being refurbished. Elsewhere, London Midland confirmed it would be implementing CCTV and passenger information systems on all its rolling stock, with new automatic load monitoring equipment installed to provide real-time information on carriage capacity. London Midland also confirmed several station enhancements, including more cycle storage, improved accessibility, and 1,000 more car parking spaces at stations. London Midland would also invest £9.3 million into a new smart card technology system, and £2.7 million in new gate lines at Birmingham, and £500,000 in new ticket machines across the network. Finally, London Midland would improve safety at stations with new CCTV systems, and would roll out new London Midland branding within 3 years, including the London Midland City brand for local services around the West Midlands, and the London Midland Express lines for longer distance services. Overall, London Midland promised an impressive list of upgrades, but would they live up to expectations? Well, going into December 2008, passengers were disappointed at the new timetable. London Midland confirmed that the DfT would no longer fund the direct Walsall to Wolverhampton service due to a lack of passenger numbers, despite a growth in passenger numbers as of late. Hence, London Midland withdrew all direct services, bar an early morning Saturday parliamentary service, to keep route knowledge up to date. However, London Midland did introduce a new Worcester to Gloucester service, which ran every 2 hours using a single Class 170 Turbostar. The service was introduced to improve the number of services at Ashchurch for Tewkesbury. Elsewhere, the Class 139s, despite being built, could not be introduced into service due to numerous technical issues, which led to a rail replacement bus being used on the Stourbridge shuttle, following the movement of the Class 153s to other parts of the network. Eventually, the new Class 139s were brought into service by June 2009. This came at a similar time to the Class 350-2s being brought into service, with London Midland meeting their target for the new fleet introduction. As for the Class 150s and 321s, which London Midland expected to let go, they would remain at the operator. London Midland kept 3 Class 150s for services on the Marston Vale line between Bedford and Bletchley, whilst London Midland retained 7 Class 321s for services on the Abbey line and peak services into Euston from Northampton, Milton Keynes and Tring. However, despite the rolling stock improvements to Sunday services did not occur. Similar to Central Trains and Silverlink, London Midland suffered with a shortage of staff on Sundays due to the voluntary working conditions on the network. In late September, London Midland cancelled most of its Sunday services across September, with Wrekin MP Mark Pritchard writing to the Transport Secretary to investigate the issues, and to ask London Midland to pay their staff what they deserve for working anti-social hours. The RMT also balloted strike action due to the station, retail, booking office and supervisory staff not receiving the same pay increase for Sunday workings as drivers did, with strikes occurring earlier in March 2009 over the same issue. Luckily for passengers, London Midland did have ticket acceptance with other operators and ran rail replacement buses. Things got worse for passengers when, in December 2009, London Midland withdrew its Gloucester to Worcester services, citing low passenger numbers. London Midland claimed an average of only 16 passengers were using every service, with the service, not funded by the Department for Transport, being unprofitable. This led to the reduction of services between Gloucester and Worcester to once every 2 hours. In 2010, things didn't improve. Poor reliability of its fleet led to a large number of breakdowns, and services became much more unreliable, averaging around 87% of services being on time. However, London Midland did attempt to increase its services. They proposed a new hourly Birmingham to Preston service from 2016 by diverting every other Liverpool service, with the Euston to Crewe services being extended to Liverpool to keep the twice-hourly services from Crewe to Liverpool. Despite the services ultimately being rejected in March 2011 by the Department for Transport, they did highlight how operators could still innovate. Also in 2011, the first of the new Class 172s entered service, marking the end of the Class 150s being used on Snow Hill Line services. The 27 new trains, costing £93 million, would improve comfort and cater for the increasing passenger numbers, according to Managing Director of London Midland, Mike Hodson. As well as this, London Midland announced in September that they will be ordering a further 18 Class 350s, with 8 designated for London Midland and 10 subleased to First Transpennine Express, before returning to London Midland after Transpennine Express received new rolling stock. As 2011 turned to 2012, many expected it to be a normal year, but instead it turned out to be one of the worst years any operator could have. However, the year started relatively well when, in March, London Midland announced a series of service upgrades, including doubling the number of Crewe to Euston services on Sundays. However, things began going downhill in the summer. In July, London Midland announced that it would be attempting to close 9 ticket offices and reducing opening times at a further 77. Those that would be closed included Adderley Park, Cheddington, Drury Quarter and Small Heath. In response to the announcement, the RMT held protests at 4 railway stations, including in Stourbridge and Worcester. London Midland argued that the number of tickets being brought at ticket offices was in steady decline. Regardless, the protesters won, with the DfT rejecting any ticket office closures. However, ticket office hours at some stations did decline. Things, however, would get worse for London Midland when, in October, the worst 3 months of any train operator I've ever made a video on began. On the 2nd of October, London Midland were forced to cancel 30 services from London, Liverpool and Birmingham due to a recent high turnover of staff, with London Midland Commercial Director Richard Brooks suggesting the company had recruited a substantial number of new people who were in training. The RMT union suggested it had warned London Midland of the potential lack of staff, including drivers and guards, for some time, but this had fallen on deaf ears. Travel Watch urged London Midland to get their act together, with cancellations and overcrowding on Shrewsbury services and the cross-city line services, which passengers described as a meltdown. Delays and cancellations had hindered operations, with things not improving. On the 10th of October, London Midland warned passengers that these short-notice cancellations and delays should be expected for well over 2 months, due to a shortage of drivers and guards. London Midland blamed an unusually high number of drivers leaving the company, especially at depots in Birmingham, leading to a high cancellation on the cross-city line and services in and around Birmingham New Street. ITV News called the service a crisis, with now 70 trains a day being cancelled across the West Midlands, due to around 30 drivers leaving the company after rival operators offered them a higher salary. Richard Brooks of London Midland suggested that the issues should be resolved by December the 9th with the new timetable. However, that meant 2 months of potential delays and cancellations, and that's exactly what happened. On the 23rd of October, 60 services were cancelled, including to Lichfield, Redditch, Walsall, Northampton, with more disruption on the 24th and 25th, leading passengers to call for the franchise to be stripped from Govia. The West Midlands Campaign for Better Transport group accused London Midland of overseeing a shambles of a rail service, whilst Northfield MP Richard Burden wrote to the Transport Secretary to take urgent action. The Campaign for Better Transport group suggested that London Midland lied about how long the problems would last for, with a Birmingham Live poll seeing around 66% of pollsters voting for London Midland to have its franchise be stripped from them. However, London Midland survived. On the 26th of October, yet more cancellations, with 16 services from Coventry to Birmingham being cancelled, as well as 38 other cancellations. On the 27th, a Saturday, London Midland cancelled over 100 services. However, services on Sundays were less impacted. This meant that, in just under a month, London Midland had cancelled over 470 services, with London Midland now publishing cancellations 48 hours before departure on a special sub-page on its website. November was more the same, with around 30 to 60 cancellations per day, hitting the 500 cancellation mark by November. The 3rd of November saw 80 services cancelled, one of the highest of the crisis. The DfT suggested that they would need quick improvements of London Midland in order to keep the franchise, with London Midland ending autumn as the worst performing train company. MP Mark Garnier suggested that the services were absolutely atrocious, with more cancellations occurring into December, reaching 1,000 cancellations by the start of the new timetable, with the day before seeing 39 cancellations. The new timetable luckily did resolve most of the cancellations, and the 3-month cancellation crisis had ended, with London Midland's reputation taking a huge hit. However, London Midland attempted to regain passenger confidence in 2013 by introducing faster journeys across the network. They achieved this with the Class 350-1s, whose manufacturer Siemens and owners Angel Trains worked with Network Rail and the Department for Transport to authorise the 30 350-1s to increase their top speeds from 100 miles an hour to 110 miles an hour, cutting journey times from Crewe to London by up to 35 minutes. The 350-1s were able to join the 350-3s and -4s in 110 mile an hour operations. The latter two subvariants had the upgrades from new. That left just the -2s to 100 mile an hour running. However, Siemens expressed its want for the -2s to be able to run at 110 miles an hour in the future. Elsewhere, in October, London Midland confirmed its refurbishment of the 3 Class 150s that remained in the fleet, coming in at £72,000. The refurbishment, which all but confirmed the 150's futures with London Midland, received new London Midland branded seating, with new lighting and internal walls repainted. The units also received the London Midland livery, which also came with the award of Best in Class for reliability of the 150s. Away from rolling stock, London Midland's reliability figures for 2012 to 2013 revealed a disappointing but expected low figure, with only 76% of services arriving on time during the November 2012 to December 2013 period, a record low for the operator. Going into 2014, London Midland enjoyed their highest punctuality figures to record, with 92.2% of services arriving on time. This was a stark contrast to just 12 months ago. These improvements in punctuality won London Midland a contract extension in June until April 2016. This coincided with London Midland announcing service increases during the December 2014 timetable. With the introduction of the 350-3s, London Midland were able to offer several large-scale timetable improvements, including faster services between Northampton and Euston, more services from Birmingham to Euston, more express crew to Euston services, and more frequent services from Redditch and Birmingham, due to more Class 323s becoming available following the Class 350-3 introduction. All in all, the new timetable provided 139,000 additional seats per week, thanks to a £62 million investment from the government. 2015 was a somewhat quiet year for the company. In November, a Class 170 caught fire on a commuter service at Lapworth Station on the Chiltern Mainline in Warwickshire, causing the whole mainline to close in both directions, blocking services to Birmingham and London Marylebone. Luckily, nobody was severely injured. Elsewhere, London Midland finally announced its withdrawal of the Class 321s, which would move to ScotRail to join its sister Class 320 fleet, with the 321s being converted to Class 320s. To replace the 320s, London Midland acquired 7 Class 319s from Thameslink. In December, London Midland won another contract extension until October 2017. This came as the Department for Transport confirmed it would not be able to complete its bidding process by April 2016, hence gave London Midland a temporary extension in its franchise in order to complete the tender process. Govia, with the new extension, promised to increase services on Sundays in the West Midlands, install new ticket machines, and install CCTV on the Class 323 units. In 2016, London Midland's final full year of operations, the West Midlands Combined Authority announced that it would be funding a year-long trial of the VivaRail Class 230 diesel multiple units, converted from former London Underground D-stock trains, on the Nuneaton to Leamington Spa route, in hope of eventual rollout on that line. However, following a fire on one of the units, the trial never went further than a trial. In January, proposals came about which could have seen the toilets and seats removed from some London Midland trains to reduce overcrowding. The proposals, which were put forward by the Department for Transport, came about after consistent overcrowding on London Midland. The DfT proposed increasing standing room on services by reshuffling seating layouts, removing toilets from trains, and banning full-size bikes from peak time services, as well as axing the subsidy for late-night services to fund the proposed changes. Thankfully for passengers, who were angered by the proposals and potential cuts in services, they were never followed through on, but left passengers worried as to what could happen in the future. Talking about the future, the DfT confirmed direct services from Euston to Liverpool would no longer be operated by the new West Midlands franchise after London Midland's contract expired. The DfT suggested the move would allow more focus on Liverpool's routes and would reduce overcrowding, with Virgin Trains having spare room on its London services. Elsewhere, 2 new railway stations opened under London Midland, Bermuda Park and Coventry Arena. The new stations form part of an upgrade to the Nuneaton to Leamington Spa service, which would also see a new station at Kenilworth constructed. Although the 2 new stations were over budget and delayed, with construction beginning in 2014, the openings represented an increase in services on the line and the reversal of Kenilworth Station's closure back in the 1960s. However, Kenilworth Station would finally open later after London Midland ceased operations. Finally, in 2016, the West Midlands franchise welcomed new bidders, which would operate the new brand name, West Midlands Railway, ran by the West Midlands Combined Authority. Govia, Abellio and MTR bid for its franchise, with Govia hopeful of retaining the franchise it had ran since 2007. Going into London Midland's final year of operation, strike action loomed. Although London Midland were involved in national strike action, the guards on London Midland voted to strike over proposed cuts to the roles of guards on London Midland, with many guards fearing that London Midland eventually wanted to remove guards altogether on its services, something Govia had a past record of doing on other operators. Luckily, Govia and the RMT agreed a deal which would see guards remain on their posts, and January strike action was avoided. In July, London Midland won a short extension to its contract until December 2017. This was so the DfT could continue with the bidding process rather than rushing it. In August, the DfT awarded the new franchise to Abellio. The new franchise would coincide with a £1 billion investment into the network, with new rolling stock by 2021, a 15-minute delay repay scheme introduced, and improved access across the network. Abellio confirmed that the franchise would be split into 2 sub-brands, West Midlands Railway, which, unsurprisingly, would operate services in and around the West Midlands, and London North Western Railway for services from London Euston and all other services. However, they would operate under one large company name, called West Midlands Trains. Anyway, back to London Midland, and on the 10th of December 2017, London Midland ceased operations, handing over to Abellio's West Midlands trains, ending 10 years of Govia ran services. So, should London Midland be deemed as a failed franchise? In my opinion, probably yes. They did make hefty improvements, including the introduction of the Class 350-2s and -3s, the Class 172s and Class 139s, but their treatment of staff and, well, lack of staff severely hindered operations, with Govia seeking to remove guards from services. Although they did meet franchise requirements and introduce new services, constant overcrowding and poor reliability is why I personally believe that they are a failure. But what do you think? Am I being too harsh on London Midland, or were they a bad operator and thus a failed franchise? Well, please let me know in the comments below. Do consider liking, subscribing and joining the channel if you enjoyed this video. Special thanks to my first class member, Callum Martin Bell, my business zone members, Andrew Berman, Anthony Harris, Anthony James Moore, Connor Grieg, Craig Mitchell 43, Jay Teco and Lewis C21. Also, thanks to all my standard class members, especially Devaruni for his donation and membership. Get your name on this list from as little as £2.99 a month and help me to make my videos. I do appreciate it. Thank you. As well as this, special thanks to everyone that let me use their footage for today's video. Their links are in the description and in the top comment. Thanks so much for watching. Check out my Twitter, Discord and Instagram in the links below. And I'll see you soon. Goodbye.